Through the Noise with your host, Ernesto Glucksmann.
Babu, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm great.
You're great? You're doing well? You said you were in San Francisco.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we're talking across the country right now between you and I. We're covering the 3,000 miles. So thank goodness for technology, right?
Yeah.
Babu, you're Sivadasan, the co-founder and CEO of JIFFY.ai. And I just happened to, I think I was on TechCrunch. I can't quite remember, but every so often new startups or companies get some interesting funding, and yours came. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Raised 18 million. That's a pretty good sum to get something really going. But what caught my eye was this foundation component that you attached. And so I'll bring that up later in the show. I kind of curious about JIFFY.ai itself. So when somebody at the dinner party asks you, Babu, what do you do? What do you tell them about it?
Yeah, well, what I tell them is, we are trying to break that human-machine divide. So we are enabling technology that allows enterprises to, transform themselves, using AI and machine learning techniques that allows you to automate a lot of functions. So you can, workforce, humans can, delegate what they don't want to do and do focus on more creative activities, that we are really good at, so eliminate the task switching, that happens within the enterprise, where people are forced to do certain things, that they don't really want to do. We automate such processes.
And so the software seems to be a suite of products, right? There's like you got to design the automation process. Can you maybe break us down the sort of suite that you have to give us a sense of it?
Yeah, so we have 3 core capabilities. One, what we refer to as JIFFY.ai Automate. Basically we can observe business processes, how they function within an enterprise, and then we can learn from it. We can learn from human actions, and our technology can then replicate them at scale. So that is our first offering. We can do the same thing for assuring technology that you're putting out there, making sure that from a human validation perspective, it looks good, it performs well. We have technology that has significant cognitive abilities, that can make sure, just like we would verify and make sure software works, technology can do that. And then the third piece is, a transformative piece, where you can also deliver new pieces of functionality. So when you look at a process, sometimes, you're just automating the way it is today, right? But these things have been built for 30 years, so they, along the way, you need to look at improving the processes or transforming the processes. That's what that third component, JIFFY.ai Innovate, is all about, where you can quickly, through simple instructions, you can have the machines do software creation for you and process creation for you, and you can quickly deliver them in real time.
So, to ground it as a kind of a hypothetical example, is this sort of this scenario where, let's say I'm a kind of an administrator, and through me flows forms that people fill that I have to kind of visually check that they've been filled, and then I might fill in a separate form on my big screen, but just sort of like categorize that application, if it's an application or something that was submitted to me. It's that kind of thing where there's a similarity to each process, that you guys have technology that can improve, do it at scale, is what you said. So like do the actual work.
Right.
Is what you're aiming at? Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're aiming at. That's just a start, but if you look at, what we really do, like earlier I mentioned about the human-machine divide, you would ask the question, why do I have to do data entry? Because, machines aren't able to understand, what you and I take for granted. We look at a document, we instantly understand it. we look at a screen, right? Now we instantly understand what it is, and we have a conversation. We instantly understand the gist of that conversation, right? We are bringing that kind of ability to the machines, so that machines could do the same thing, so you can transfer you can go in and out, you can coexist in a much better way rather than having to need transformation techniques like data entry, like uh, eh, making decisions, that machine should be able to make decisions.
And then the testing component is just it's AI. It's like a probabilistic generated algorithm that has to it's likely to be this thing that you mean to fill in, and then you run it against a test of cases that are it has 90% assurance that that's the right answer based on past, right? Is that how?
Yeah. So that's where the cognitive ability comes in. The standard testing tools, what happens is, you're off by a pixel, you've created test capabilities, and then the actual software that got delivered is off by a few pixels or something, the test programs fail, right? Whereas, we have a lot more tolerance in terms of, what, is allowed, what is not allowed, even though you haven't defined it explicitly. Just like, we do, right? We look at something and we know it may not be exactly what you expected, but if it is not that far off, there's a tolerance that we associate with it. From a visual perspective, from a functional perspective, those things we are able to capture in our testing tool.
Wow. And so then when a form that was submitted that wasn't filled or partially filled, you can adjust the tolerance for, okay, it's partially filled, but it's good enough to go into a bucket, or it's not been filled enough to go just, negate that form. That alone could just reduce the amount of forms you're actually having to sort out if they're ready to go or not, right?
Exactly. Those are all applications of that. Yeah.
So can you give us what's the most sophisticated process you've been able to automate substantially?
So I'll give you one example. There are many processes of varying sophistication, but just let's take a large organization working with, let's say, 4,000, 5,000 different partners, right? So every month you're buying services or products from them, and you're getting an invoice every month. Let's say the vendors that you work with you're not doing meaningful scale of business with them, so which doesn't require, or you don't have the ability to create electronic interfaces with them. And they're sending you invoices for the services that they've rendered, and everybody is sending invoices in their own format, their own way. They are using their own software to create them. And normally on the finance department, what will happen is, you will have a large number of people. If you're processing, let's say, 30 to 40,000 invoices a month, that's a lot, right? That requires somebody to look at it and understand it. First of all, you need to make sure you're getting a real invoice. It's not a fake vendor that is coming through, right? And then you got to check, okay, does this have the right purchase order? Is this valid? Have we performed the function to pay this for this service?
Has this been approved?
There are a lot of things.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. There are a lot of those things, that you have to check, which is manual, right? Which you go and check one system, then you go and go look at your ERP system for certain pieces of information. You make certain decisions, you ask around, on when things are not clear. Those are things, that we are able to automate end to end.
Whoa. Okay. So hold on. So I'm visualizing being the admin person. I get an email that comes in with an invoice, and I go into my accounts receivable system. And I know that I'm looking for the name and the PO number to see if it's been approved. If it is, I mark it, invoiced, or I mark it paid, because I'm now processing that into into something. Your software could monitor that, and without actually coding, an email with the name here, needs to then match a name in this system's database, you could just, it's like separate from that. Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So we could, and you're dealing with, let's say, for 5,000 different vendors, and each vendor may call it differently. You know, one vendor may call it invoice number, another vendor may, or PO number, another vendor may call it order number, right? You know, so, or various ways, you know, you can describe, you know, that's the beauty of, you know, our language. You know, you can convey certain things with different words, different ways of expressing them, right? You need to be able to understand them. And our technology is able to understand them all, right? And then take that to, and it's a little bit more complex than what we talked about. Like, you know, sometimes an invoice can cover multiple POs, right? You know, so you're getting an invoice, you know, that covers for services or products, you know, that's in multiple POs, you know, so you have to check them all.
Yeah, and is it a is it a typical so how does it work? Is it like a screen? Are you capturing screenshots of this person's desktop, or is it like you're just recording the video? Like, how does the AI eventually figure out that you're sort of always looking in these areas and then looking to OCR that and match that with, you know, your accounting software?
Yeah, so typically there are three core capabilities in play, right? One is the visual identification, looking at something, right? Whether that is a document, in this case, you know, for example, if it's an invoice and it's typically a document, it could be an image too, right? It could be something, you know, that comes over fax, or an image that gets sent from just a photo, right? You know, so those kind of things. So you have to be able to first understand that, you know. So then when it comes to processes, you know, that, you know, those applications, you know, that you're looking at, some of them may have APIs available, right? You know, that you can tap into when you define an automated process, but a lot of them may not. In which case, you know, you have to understand what the user will typically understand. You know, so we have technology that can understand a screen, you know, that you're looking at, or an application that you're looking at in very minute detail. You know, so we understand each field, we understand what it does, we map out a process, and that's what is used to do functions. You know, so, you know, this is where you go to check this particular activity. You know, so we map that whole thing out, which is what you would train. Let's say a new person is coming into the department, you know, you would tell them exactly what you're supposed to do. And
this goes here, if it's this, go over here.
Yeah. And so we automatically do that, you know. It's fascinating, those kind of what you can do with technology these days.
Okay, man, I have so many different directions on this. It's amazing to me that this is happening, because you're not actually necessarily interfacing API to API and mapping out all those and then creating conditions, you know, if then statements around all that. There's a leap here. You're just sort of observing what they're doing, and then in the systems that they're most using for their day-to-day job, you're identifying those spots. And then what? Then you run the AI saying, you figure out, you know, help me there at that point. Like, how do you get the AI to know then?
So behind the scenes, there is an AI engine, so that's trained for, let's say, documents, you know, various types of documents. You know, so there is built-in knowledge, and you know, so when it encounters something new, right? You know, just like, you know, we are trained with a number of possibilities, and then something new comes up, you know, that you haven't seen before. We are able to recognize, or we are able to relate to that. You know, same way AI algorithms, you know, are able to, you know, trained, you know, with refinements and things like that we have done. Those algorithms are able to understand and predict, you know, what that would be, right? You know, so we do that at a very field level, right? You know, so each field, you know, we have trained models. You know, so you understand, and because of that, you know, we are able to self-correct sometimes. You know, like, for example, when you do an OCR, typically it wouldn't make a clear distinction between a letter I and a number 1, like depending on the font that you're using, right? But we have that understanding of that particular field because we have trained on the possibilities and things like that. And then we also have this thing called, this capability called human in the loop, where systems are doing their thing, right? And you can always go in and out and see what it is doing. And if the machines aren't confident enough with certain decisions, it will escalate to you. So humans are always in control with the innovation.
Gotcha. Because you're also basically you're contextualizing the field. Generally speaking, we're mostly putting numbers in here. So in general, it's likely to be a number versus the eye or just a simple line. So when it's not what's kind of expected, then you kick it out of the loop and say, okay, a human should look at this type of scenario, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And we can do other things like, for example, if a purchase order number is there and we couldn't quite match, but it has to be in the system. Otherwise, you cannot pay for it, right? So we can validate, is this a valid value, even so correct for OCR mistakes, right? Using that verification mechanisms, right? And then use that to take it to the next step.
Can you give us an example? I know there's an interesting case study with recent stuff with COVID. Can you walk us through that one? Because I found that particularly compelling when I read it on the site.
Yeah, so that is all about your ability to quickly turn in or create new capability, right? So we have machine learning models and algorithms, that allows us to quickly create new pieces of functionality without having to go through this lengthy friction, filled process of, multiple roles being involved. So you have a simple specification of what you're trying to do, but then so many roles need to participate in it, and it creates a lot of friction in the process, right? So we are able to have machines do some of those activities. So with COVID, especially the payroll protection program, we had to develop some, loan applications, for example. That looks very different. It's not current existing loan applications that most financial institutions had was not able to handle that. Because it has never been done before. Like the need is very different. The kind of requirements that small business administration put out there was very different, right? So which required you to quickly put something together, put an application together. Normally you would put an Excel spreadsheet in no time, right? When something like that comes in, and we created application, fully functional application that can capture all that information. You can provide a portal to the consumer. You can collect all that information and then use that information. It fills forms, and then on the back end, being able to automatically read all that information from the signed paperwork, and you are supposed to provide some 10 to 15 supporting documents, right? So somebody has to read all those supporting documents and process them. So technology is able to do all that. So that was something that we put out.
So when you get a customer or prospect, somebody interested in the technology, it's probably a complaint of, I keep having to keep hiring more and more administrative overhead staff in this area, right? Like maybe I have a big book selling process in an association. We have some certification books that every year our members buy in droves, but we have to make sure they're all getting it mailed to the right place, and it's just a big hassle because it comes in all at once, and then orders fall off until the next edition comes out. What do you guys, I guess, what are you looking for in the problem challenge that they have that is sufficient enough to justify the AI? Like, what's sort of your zone? Like, it's got to be significant repetitive work. It just can't be like, oh, I have to fill out my weekly report to my boss every week. I wish I had some AI that would just fill it out for me, so I don't have to do it.
No, we are solving for that. No, actually,
you are.
That's once a week. I understand, but you know what a pain it is. So I'll say simple things, right? So we connect with people on LinkedIn all the time, and or various social media all the time. And we agreed to have a follow-up meeting, and you forget about setting up that meeting. How embarrassing can that be? And because you have to context switch. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
And even when there are nifty applications, calendaring applications that allow you to create all that, but it asks you to fill a big form, right? When that and there are two things that matter. What time it is, who are you talking to, and who else would you like to be part of that conversation, right? And you don't have to spend time going and looking at hey, am I available at that time, and all that should automatically happen, right? So those little things, that they all add up, and now our focus is mostly on large enterprises, where, I'll tell you this example. Like, I was just going through a refinance, with a very, fairly well-run, large financial institution, and how long it took me? It took me 4 months, right? And I almost lost interest in doing this, because you get constantly asked about the supporting documents, then 2 weeks later another document request will come in, and that whole process is so messed up, right? And then you look at why is that, and that's because these processes are, that's how it works today, right? So there is so much improvement that we can do on a lot of these business processes, to bring efficiency and get that superior client experience, where that gratification that you feel when you go to Amazon and search for something and immediately order, right? And that kind of instant 5 seconds or 10 seconds gratification that you feel you're in control, you're able to quickly do things. I wish every process in every enterprise was that, so that's what we are able to, we are on a mission to solve.
Wow. I could point to several of them, like international development in healthcare, where you go, in a rural, difficult to reach, maybe, impoverished region of the world, there'll be like one clinic, and there'll be like, 30, 40 different organizations providing some of the most basic urgent needs. But what they're also doing is they need some of the data. It's like vaccinating this village. Did we get that data back? And the common challenge there is there's sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or more computers in this little, village, where the doctors are having to fill in all this data, in multiple forms, because these nonprofits or governmental organizations, they're not coordinating with each other. Like, you should be able to fill out once for the patient, and then whatever program needs certain information from that body or that data point, they should be able to pull it. There's no solution. It's just like everybody just keeps sending and creating more, like, oh, we can use our system to implement in this part of the world. So that's a huge problem that adds, basically it's like administrative tax to taking care of people, right?
Right. And error prone as well, I might say, right?
So for sure.
You're playing with people's lives here, and a simple data entry mistake could be devastating, so we have to get those inefficiencies out of the system.
Yeah, I guess that's why the investors are giving you their money. If you have this sort of process, this budding process, what stage are you now with the organization? Like, what are you pushing into with it?
Yeah, so we've been building a technology for a while, for about 3 years or so, and last year we raised capital. We continued on, and we completed the capital raise, and we have 150 people right now. We are working with 7 Fortune organizations, so we are on our journey, continuing on and working with a number of high quality organizations on their processes, during this COVID time, right? So even that time, systems have been built, processes have been built for high scale, right? But then these have been testing times for organizations in areas, that you didn't expect. Like, for example, bookings of tickets, every airline, that's a process, they make it so efficient because, that's the revenues tied to it. And then you have cancellations or changes, which happens, maybe a small percentage of that overall activity, right?
That's
but
not the large part. That's the subset.
Yeah.
So nobody
what
invests
in
on the
February,
correcting. The giving back the money, nobody invests too much.
Yeah.
Or as much.
What happened in February and March, right? So everything got canceled or postponed or delayed, and it is stressing out areas within the organization that you never imagined. So we have been able to put processes in place, in that in a week's time we automated certain things, reduce the queues substantially, and consumers had the peace of mind that somebody is actually getting back to them and giving them insight on, hey, your requests have been taken care of, or at least engaging in that conversation rather than sitting in that queue with no information.
I mean, that must have been like an onslaught for the airlines of cancellations and refund requests. And then, so the vast majority are just things you would probably automatic or nearly automatically do or approve, but just the sheer scale, what you're trying to find are the ones that are maybe fraudulent or not quite right, whatever that was. And so your software should like handle the bulk so that the ones that hit a red line are actually reviewed by a person that can make a decision on, right?
Yeah, so we have done quite a bit of that through the technology as well, right? So it's not just canceling the trip entirely, it's postponements or changes, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is a little bit more complex than simple cancellations.
Of
yes.
course, it always is, right?
Yeah.
Did you find yourself like, that project was just something that immediate project that needed help, and then, or did you feel had to reach out to other groups? I mean, how do you find the problems in this world that you guys can feel like you can tackle?
Right. So those things come from clients, that you're working with, and prospects, that you're constantly talking to, right? So, and we are very early in our journey, but within that short period of time, we had the good fortune of working with some high quality organizations, where we are an integral part of their automation / modernizations or transformation journey.
Businesses, their business units, the process.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. You supporting the tech, and they're more on the architecting or defining the challenges with their clients. Well, we should shift into this, because the thing that really caught my eye in the press release was that you attached the business to a foundation, or there's a foundation's a equity stake owner. And from what I had read, it was, it sounds like you've recognizing that obviously this type of technology, A, is incredible, B, is powerful. It can really drastically cut the type of work that everybody hates, especially if you can do my calendaring. If this thing can do my calendaring, you got my money. But the question I have is, what compelled you to do it? Like, it's going to displace workers, right? As this thing gets better. So what's the push there? Why add a foundation into this business model?
Yeah, so if you look at the major technological innovations, or major revolutions in where it is agricultural, industrial, information, what happens is things happen for the better, right? And a whole lot of new jobs get created, but then there are a whole lot of existing jobs that get displaced, right? And generally we take this approach that okay, well, that is change, that is part of the progress that you make, and the innovators don't necessarily think about the actions, the results of their actions, because, we are trained to just focus on the outcomes and the improvements, that you make, and we leave out people who have been affected, So earlier you mentioned, so many administrators, that you keep adding, right? That is not good, but at the same time, it's giving livelihoods to a whole bunch of people, right? So that we need to think about this kind of disruptive changes, that when you introduce them, you have to start thinking about how we can, do that transition in a socially responsible way, right? And I've been a serial investor myself. Many entrepreneurs have come and made pitches about their own little AI technologies, that transforms and eliminates X number of jobs, and that's how, that's a good thing, right? But then I always ask that question, what about them? What are you doing to support them, or what are you thinking about, right? Now, how do we make that transition process where people aren't being left out, and that's a belief, so that always the answer was, they haven't thought about it, so I felt
right?
strongly, like, when if I were to do something and we were to do something, we want to do it differently. So it was important to us that, we try to balance the two, right? Innovation and transformation is extremely important, right? Because we have come a long way from the Stone Ages. That's because of our creativity and how we strive every single day to make the world a better place today than yesterday, right? Or tomorrow. So that requires a lot of hard work and commitment towards that transformation. Now, at the same time, it comes at a cost, right? And we have to do something about it. And this was our attempt, to create a structure. We felt very strongly that you don't have to choose between the two, right? You can do both at the same time. So we created a unique structure, convinced our investors that was the right thing to do. And frankly, almost every one of our investors have been totally supportive of that approach, because normally, leaving away a large portion of equity for a for-profit organization, to have a significant shareholder, the largest shareholder being a nonprofit, that is hard to pull off, because that kind of a capital structure is difficult, right? So. And you may ask the question, why not do the whole thing as a nonprofit? That's not going to work either,
No,
right? Because
I didn't ask that. I know that
because the innovation is dead on arrival. Because what we do, these kind of innovations take a lot of capital, and that capital it's a risk capital, and that needs a return. So a capitalistic for-profit enterprise that is created all this progress for us, right? Now, that is important, right? Now, we are trying to add a little bit of a twist to it, trying to figure out, hey, how do we, within that confines of that kind of a structure, can we also create an entity that is tasked with this mandate that you're going to do something about the disruption that we cause. Now, we haven't caused any displacements or anything yet, but we are thoughtful about, there'll be a day, right, when we are extremely successful, and along the way we will have created disruptions, and we wanted to take some amount of responsibility for our actions. We can't solve the problem fully, but at least we would have a large amount of capital to be able to be deployable, because we've created shareholder value in that, that allows that entity to kind of deploy that and make provide a helping hand, if you will. And right now,
I mean, Babu, I commend all of that, because I think that is, I mean, I've been in tech for God knows how many years. I'm the old guy in tech now, but this using the word disruption has always kind of rubbed me a little bit uncomfortably, because I'm a big believer in progress and creating efficiencies and reducing, repetitive tasks, difficult manual. Although that is essential to
Right.
progress for
Right.
any society. But you can't then just simply say, oh, great, we just disrupted the food service business with our great, delivery gig economy system. It's like, okay, no, you did do that. That's great. It's a cool app. Thanks for doing that. Uber, I'm talking to you, Uber. That's great. Uber driving. But you have to understand there's unintended consequences to a massive, massive technology deployment.
Right.
And so far, I think Silicon Valley's kind of dropped the ball in creating structures that actually then help with the aftermath, the wake, that, of all of that. And so I'm just really hopeful, Babu, that your business grows and this becomes kind of a piece of that puzzle, that model, that, like, investors, I get it, they want to put in their money and then get it out soon within a few years, and want to return. And anything they're sort of trained in their mindset that anything that distracts the leadership, is a distraction to success. But I think that's very short-sighted in this
Absolutely.
world, and where we are now. That's short-sighted. I don't know, 10, 20 years from now, if automation and the AI technology continues to progress as it has, I think they're going to come out. They're going to come for the companies that didn't take care of the wake, that didn't figure out a way to do that. It's already happening now in many of these companies.
Right.
People are already disgruntled with so much of, in so many different sectors of technology, social media being a huge one, that I think it just needs a new model, and it needs the
Right.
rigor of what you're doing. So I know that this is brand new for you guys. I know this is a vision for you, and you're still figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, for sure. Ernesto, so it will take some time, but we wanted to make the commitment on day one. We wanted to make it irreversible, right? Because startups and organizations go through
Dilute
ups
those
and
early
downs.
shareholder
Yeah.
dilutions.
Yeah. You want to you will go through ups and downs. We will for sure go through ups and downs. And, we wanted to make that strong commitment on day one. And we got a whole bunch of long-term investors, who really like that, like the path, that we have taken on. And frankly, it's just an attempt, so we don't know, if this is the solution to the problem. At least, we are doing something about taking an approach, that, it took a little bit of creativity to convince a whole bunch of people, and, our own co-founding members and our employees and everybody, to do that. And we have navigated that. So we have taken that first step, I would say. And right now we are working with major universities trying to craft programs. How do you deal with, what kind of support infrastructure that is required, and things like this. So we are figuring those things out.
Right.
When you put a foundation together, the immediate, the way it works is, you're supposed to start giving away 5% or something like that, of things, that you haven't created any value. So we are trying to walk through all those challenges. You see what I'm saying? Trying to figure out, how do we make progress, continue to make progress, and continue to create value, and so that we can maximize that value that we can deploy as well.
Yeah, anybody on that listens to the show that's a nonprofit in a nonprofit expert world that would have some insights, I kind of would recommend you reach out. There's my kid popping into. Oh, okay, never mind. Not today. I would recommend to reach out to you, and there are programs out there already established. That's kind of the one thing to do is, if you can avoid it, don't start a nonprofit. But if you are going to start it because you have to, in this case, to make it the equity share, the main equity shareholder, right, for the business, then you're gonna need help to get that going. Among also doing growing the business. Babu, just one question then on that, like what compelled you to structure it that way? Like, is there something in the past? Did you when the other companies and work that you've done, and you just thought we got to take a step more?
It comes from my humble beginnings and my background, and I've seen a world where the lack of jobs, what it means, what it can be. I've seen that. I've been one of those, right? Where I've come from an environment where I've seen a lot of poverty, and all this progress has happened. A lot of jobs got created, and now you're talking about those going away, right? So you have to feel. You will feel. If you have been from those kind of environments, you know what it means, right? So it is extremely important to balance the two, right? So progress has to happen, but you have to balance that. So it was our attempt. It is our attempt, and I talk to our younger generation all the time, right? So my kids, they resonate with purpose-built organizations. I ask them all the time, where do you want? Who do you want to work for? And they always tell me that we want to work for a purpose-built organization. And so that's what the next generation calls for, right? They want responsible innovation. They want responsible wealth creation. They don't want significant imbalances in society. And so we have to continue to look for ways where we can make progress and spread that progress around. AI technologies, unfortunately, has the potential, if not used the right way, to create further bigger imbalance than what it already is. So we have to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah. So I know I've said this already. I commend you for doing it and staking, sort of drawing that line in the sand and giving it a shot. And I hope that inspires other companies and other nonprofits to also look at this. Like there are nonprofits that could probably also be married or become part of a for-profit company that can make the product. I know
Right.
Thread in Baltimore was an example. I've had earlier interviews here on the show. I can't remember the actual episode. They definitely have they have the nonprofit component, and then they have the product design that's being developed by a company, but they're partners. It's a partnership that's involved there. So I think what I'm getting at is this type of arrangements are starting to become more common and more expected.
Absolutely.
And hopefully it'll drive some change in what we expect out of nonprofits, which I tend to think that they are unfairly burdened with administrative. Maybe your AI could help some of that auditing process.
Love to. I'm sure there's a lot we could do.
Yes, Babu, if somebody wants to find a little bit more about the company and the services, where should they go? JIFFY.ai, right?
AI.
Okay. Babu, thank you so much for doing this, for popping in with me, and just giving me best of luck. And let's do this again next year. Let me see how things are going. And when you're ready to find that executive director to run the foundation, just let me know. I know.
All right.
Let me know. Okay.
Let's make it in person next time. Okay?
Yes, that sounds. Yes, please. Hopefully, yes. Fingers crossed that we get through this all together. So, take care. All right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much, Ernest.
You're welcome. Thank you.
For more episodes of Through the Noise, go to throughthenoise.us.